Thank you, everybody, for watching my show, William Wallace for America. You're either watching this on Rumble or you're listening to my podcast. Either way, you can find me on the other platforms, even at William Wallace for America on Facebook. As you all know, I'm always looking for ways to fight for freedom, find out where we're losing freedom in America, but also, more importantly, is find other people and talk about what they're doing to protect freedom in America. With me today is just that kind of a person, is Dr. Cordie Williams. His organization is 1776 Forever Free. Dr. Cordie Williams, thank you for coming on with me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, William. I know, we were hunting each other down, and I was a pain in the booty to get a hold of for a while there, but I'm glad we did it. You're a great patriot. I'm really honored by just being on your show. I've seen some of the past guests you've had, and what you're doing in America, and very, very grateful, and I mean that.
Well, you are worth the hunt, because I think when other people find out what you're doing and what you've done to protect freedom, I think they're going to want to find out more about your organization, 1776foreverfree.com, which we'll have scroll at the bottom for people to find it. But, first off, what kind of doctor are you for our guest?
Yeah, I'm a chiropractor. I'm a holistic chiropractor. I've been in practice since 2014. I always say moving bodies since probably 2007. Doing functional rehab. I worked with some professional athletes in the National Football League, Major League Baseball, Olympic athletes for a period of time, doing a functional resistance technique, and that kind of led me into partnering with a chiropractor, and I discovered chiropractic and saw how it changes the body, the mind, the spirit, and the soul, and was just sold on it. I knew I didn't want to dole out drugs that kill people, or give people, those things that are scams,
Right.
and foreign to the immune system. So, and I didn't want to give old people weights, even though there's a lot of great PTs out there that don't do that. I didn't want to be the insurance PT that does that. And so I was sold on chiropractic and just fell in love with it.
What's interesting is, like you said, you're following a naturopathic method, which is, I think, something that's another sign of freedom in America. I think that a lot of people have learned, from what happened with the 2020 and 2020 up through 2022, is that people have been held hostage and have lost their freedoms in the medical industry. And people like you and some other naturopathic, chiropractic type of people are in the country. They really came out in that time frame, also showing that, hey, medical freedom is also another form of freedom. Do you know that one of the founding fathers wanted to put it into the Constitution, medical freedom, and it didn't quite make it. I'll tell that story later when we have more time. But you, being a visionary, saw that. But what I'm curious about is, what took you from your passion of medical freedom as a chiropractor to your passion to start 1776 Forever Free?
Well, it really was, call it good luck, bad luck, depends on how you look at it. It was one of those things where when the COVID scam happened, back in March of 2020, I had a little boy that was maybe had just hit 1 year old, just shy of 2 months of being 1 year old, because he was born in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It's March 2020, and the flesh-eating bacteria with a 99.9% survival rate. People start putting on facial condoms and walking around like I Am Legend
Yeah.
with Will Smith, and the streets are barren,
Right.
the streets are dead and barren, and all that.
Right.
And Scarf Lady comes out behind the podium, and then you got Master Splinter Fauci with his rodent-like nose,
Right.
and I just, we saw that, and respectfully, without saying expletives on a Christian-based show, we just thought it was BS. We just knew that it smelled like the stains on the bottom of a porta-john, and that's not a good smell, by the way.
Right.
And it just didn't make a lot of sense. So we started to do protests, because we were close to $1 million practice. Our practice went from 300 a week to 150, and it was either go bankrupt and watch it happen and sit idly by,
Right.
or go to the streets. And for better or for worse, I just really felt this godlike calling to take to the streets and extend the finger that's between the ring finger and the index finger, out to the communists, and we started doing rallies. I blame my wife; she got me into it. The third rally we were at was at the Sacramento State Capitol,
Mhm.
and some riot gear police that were sent there by Adolf Newsom, the dictator of the Communist Republic of California. You know,
You've got some
it's
great ways of wording. I
oh,
love it. You
thanks.
know all about the algorithms.
Thanks. And you know, the Communist Republic of Cali, you know, there was maybe 100 people at 8 a.m. There, 100 like protesters, including me. There was maybe 10 cops that were in like casual fatigues. Within 2 hours, there was 3,000 people there protesting about the businesses being closed, mandatory
Right.
those and mandatory facial condoms, and businesses being shut down. And along, you know, probably an hour after we assembled, all 3,000 of us around 11 o'clock, we saw more than 500 riot gear police. They looked like Praetorian guards. They had face shields on, you know, big vests, shields, handheld shields, batons, all that. And they formed lines in front of us, and then they flanked us to the left and the right. So they were basically surrounding us, pushing us back off the Capitol steps until they got all the way to the sidewalk. People were thrown to the ground, people were handcuffed, all that. It was very violent, and they were taking the orders from Gavin Newsom. So I stood up on a platform. Lee Dundas had a boat out there that was our position at that point. I grabbed a megaphone, and this is where the media would later dub me the Megaphone Marine. And I just talked to these police officers about the oath they took. And over a period of, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, that video went viral, and it got over 22 million views. They stopped it at 15 million views on Facebook. And after that video went viral, we launched 1776 Forever Free and proceeded for the next 3 years to do rallies all over the country, all over California, big and small. We did our own self-funded 6-city, 6-state rally when no one could do rallies, and rallies were shut down. And our average crowd size was between 1,500 and 3,500. We did a march on Washington. We had people like David Harris Jr. there. I spoke on stage alongside people like Charlie Kirk at some other venues we were at. You know, all these big time names and people. I've been to Mar-a-Lago twice, ran for U.S. Senate, got 500,000 votes, and just really over about 3 years accumulated this resume. And in the middle of that, you know, almost lost everything that was dear to me. But I felt such a calling to do that for a long time. I got the bug, so to speak. And now I'm trying to put my life back together and see what God wants me to do now.
You know, you brought up an interesting point, you know, when you talk about you almost lost everything that was dear to you, you know, and not to make the analogy, but to make the analogy, you know, you look at through history, how many people throughout history have stood for freedom, have stood for liberty, have lost almost everything they ever had as a result of standing for our God-given rights. You know, these rights that you're standing for with your organization aren't given to us by, you know, governors or presidents, or given to us by our creator. That's a
I love that.
yeah, I told you he would speak it pretty soon there. That's
He
my co
agrees.
that's my co-host.
He agrees. He
And
agrees. He doesn't like communists either.
he
So we're
doesn't
on the
like
same page.
communists either. As a matter of fact, so anyway, so what happened is, you know, people end up losing their freedoms and liberties, you know, for standing for freedom and liberty as a result. And to your point, it's almost like you were doing well with your practice in California. You stood for freedom. You did the right thing. You stood for freedom and liberty, but yet ultimately you paid the price via the shutdowns, via, you know, people suppressing your voice and everything. But you've still gone along with promoting your 1776. You've still actively done everything you can to do the right thing, and for family and friends and other people that you don't even know. And you've done that. And I contend that the more people that stand up, when fewer people stand up, we lose not only our you know, our value and our dollar and what's near and dear to us, we lose freedom and liberty. But when more people stand up, they're going to see that they not only keep freedom and liberty, they keep their prosperity along with it. And that's where I think your organization is doing currently.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. That's that's always been our goal. I mean, throughout the pandemic and for years after, we were doing constitutional classes. We moved on to several different initiatives. Our whole thing has always been solutionary. We don't want to take donors' money. We don't want to take donor money. We don't want to take donor um, time, hands, and money. We don't want them to volunteer if the change we're trying to do isn't solutionary. So I think there's a lot of people that have their, hands in the donor pocket purse, if you
Right.
will, and they're not really doing anything to effectuate change. And I would agree with you, and just go back to saying that freedom isn't free. That's true, and patriotism is not about what you get; it's about what you give up. And I feel like a lot of times there aren't enough patriots that are willing to give up enough to change the trajectory of where we're going. And you see a lot of people on there selling T-shirts, doing podcasts, and I'm not knocking podcasts.
Exactly.
I'm on one right now, right?
Right.
What I am saying though is, I think besides recycled information, there needs to be something that's solutionary. So, like, I really commend you for going out there interviewing people that have big, small,
Hmm.
local organizations of all size that are trying to
Right.
change America, have a different mission. Because what if all the bigger podcasts or influencers out there quit trying to get the sexy likes and checks
Right.
and hearts and sell their shirts and build their own platforms, and said, what's a platform that has a good mission that needs my help? Because that mission needs to get out to more people so we
Mhm.
can effectuate change. The problem is that, like, even in the influencer media and freedom space, as you've noticed, I'm sure, there's a whole cabal of people that are
Mhm.
making money off of it. There's a whole cabal of people that really just see it as a business deal for them. It's another
Right.
revenue stream versus a passion project that helps effectuate change. And I
This
think the
this is
list
my
is really
this is
long.
indeed my passion. That's and you hit
Yeah.
the nail on the head. I try to bring on people who are always out there, who are out there fighting for freedom and liberty, and not as a. And I'm certainly not doing it as a way to recycle it. I'm certainly doing it as a way to help promote them and give them another voice, another outlet for their voice, and another way that they can be able to bring more people to them. Because all of us working together is going to be what it takes to save this country. I ask everybody comes on my show this simple question: where do you think we're losing freedom and liberty in America?
Well, I think that it's certainly being lost in the schools. I think I don't think there's one way to answer that question. I think it's being lost at the southern border. I think it's being lost at the voter box.
Mhm.
I mean, we have an infiltration of freedoms being taken away,
Right.
just even from an ideological perspective. I mean, if you go back to Cleon Skousen's book, The Naked Communist, you go back to the Communist Manifesto, that plan to take over the hearts, souls, and minds of the United States, the beacon of freedom in the world, I mean, they've been, in my opinion, 60 to 80% successful in that already. If you go down the 45 points, and it's on my website under resources, you click after you get through all the Operations E stuff. If you go to the top of the website and you click on resources, at the very
I have it
top,
off on
there's
the
a little
side right
tab.
here.
There's the 45 points of the Communist Manifesto that were put into congressional record by a Florida congressman 9 months, I believe, if my math is right, after Kennedy takes a bullet to the head, right? If I'm not mistaken, or 6 months, whatever that time frame was. There's somebody that's putting into congressional record, like, here's the biggest threat we have. Um, and you see that with these, alphabet soup organizations.
Right.
So it's really hard for me to answer that. I think there's so many examples just since 2015 of overt actions by a federal government and establishment, red and blue swamp, a non, it's not
Oh yeah,
Republican, it's not Biden or Trump, it's
I
not
agree
blue or red.
100%.
It is an establishment swamp that wants nothing more than total control. And that's where, as voters, you see all this stuff online. People are for Vivek Ramaswamy. He's a
Right.
plant. Nikki Haley, she's a plant.
Yeah.
Vivek is a Soros plant. DeSantis is a plant. There's all these plants, and they've said the right things in this. I have great shiny hair and a beautiful face, and if I wear a tie and I blow smoke up your tail, I'm
Right.
a great politician. I'm presidential. And we have to get out of this old way of thinking about who the right candidates
Mhm.
are based on what type of orator they are and how great their skin complexion is. Like that doesn't work anymore. I mean, look at Slick Willie. Slick
Right.
Willie's been 26 times on the Pineapple Express. Is
Right.
it called the
Exactly.
Pineapple Express? If I'm not mistaken, whatever the name of Epstein's ship is or plane.
Right.
And these people are nefarious. They're crooked, they're evil, and they want nothing better than to end this beautiful republic we have.
And and I love your point. And I always say this. It's hard for me to believe there's actually people behind the curtain, so to speak, that are trying to orchestrate, the demise of America or the destruction of freedom and capitalism in our world. And and it's hard for me to believe that there's a group of people that do that. However, when you realize how much evil has control in this world that we live in and how it's given dominion over this earth, then we realize that maybe there's people that are being used by evil to be able to, because the destruction of freedom and even America would, if the destruction of America alone would create a hell on earth for humanity. And that's why one of the other reasons why I believe it's so important for organizations like yours who's protecting America and protecting freedom in America. And that's why I wanted to bring you on too. So what else do you guys do with 1776 Project?
Well, we have an operation right now. It's been dormant for it was dormant for probably 6 to 9 months, to be candid. I kind of let it go, and a lot of that was due to my stepfather, mom, uncle, and dad passed away all in a 2-year time period. So between that and the campaign ending, I really had to reset my feet. Full disclosure, we took out SBA loans. We took those out to the max, but we lost. I don't even know. I would say we probably lost $3 million. It's really hard to estimate that. And I'm not a rich guy,
Yeah,
because in the state of California, they take 50% of that easily. Right.
right.
So we took out of those loans, just everything that COVID did, not being able to market.
Mhm.
We ended up, full disclosure, having to file for bankruptcy. And really, just with all the deaths in our family, we wanted to restart. We wanted to restart and redo. And God just really told us to be close to family. So we packed
Well,
up. We moved to New York, a little rural part of New York on Long Island, to really start over. And we've been here for 9 months, and it was probably one of the best decisions we ever made, to just come back and start over.
so you have nothing, absolutely nothing to apologize for. You have, what, based on this conversation that we've had and the one we had offline, you follow the I guess the priority list. You put God first, family next, and you put country third. So you've actually, from you have taken a path where you put, your God first, you put your family second. But when you're in California and you are promoting freedom and liberty when you had the opportunity to do so, and then you put family first when you had to go back to New York to take care of family. And as a result of all this, it's taken the wind out of your sails a little bit, but you've kept on fighting. You've kept on fighting for family. You've kept on fighting for our country, and you've done it in a way that I think leads by example, that people should get more involved in your organization, on that. So
Well,
I think I
I'm
think I
really
think I think
honored.
I
I
think it's very
appreciate that.
commendable. How hard you've been in the fight. So what do you think that other people can do to help protect freedom in America? Because I agree with you that our schools are under attack, children are under attack, and it's interesting that when I asked you that question, you went basically to protect children, which I agree with 100%. Every time I ask that question of everybody that comes on my show, I get a wider range of answers. And I think that's one of the reasons why that question is asked on every one of my shows, because I think that when you see different perspectives, it gives my listeners a chance to, hey, you know what? I can grasp onto that. I can work with that. And that's what helps motivate people when they hear, they connect with you. So for me, it's doing my podcast and bringing people on. But for you, what do you think other people can do to help protect freedom in America?
Yeah, well, I think it's support Operation Z. Gen Z influencers are 13 to 25, and there's besides the wars of the southern border being overrun, like we talked about off air, communism is winning at the voter box by
Mhm.
manipulating that system.
That's right.
We've got every alphabet agency that a known to man being mobilized against anybody that stands for the flag, red, white, and blue, or MAGA or Donald Trump. And there's multiple ways that we're being infiltrated. But the war that we're not paying a close enough attention to, in my opinion, is the hearts and minds of our kids, the ideological
That's
warfare.
right.
And that's why a good friend of mine, a 20-year-old influencer, dear friend of mine that I kind of brought into the game selling T-shirts for me, has now surpassed me. And that's the greatest thing that I think you can say when you mentor somebody and they surpass
Right.
you as far as their notoriety, their following, and what they're doing. A 20-year-old influencer named Alex Stone, who's the adopted nephew of Roger Stone, came to me after I got him into the game, and I was down in the middle of all the losses I'd incurred, emotionally, physically, financially, and every way, and said, "Hey, Cordie, I got something for you. I want you to get back in the game. I want your nonprofit to be behind this." And I said, "Okay, Alex, what is it?" And he said, "There was $5 million spent by the RNC to launch a Gen Z initiative to attack the 67 million views that Biden's getting on TikTok through Gen Z influencers." Biden, a lot of people don't know this, William, brought about, I don't know, 50 to 100 Gen Z influencers 2 or 3 years ago to the White House. It's estimated they've gotten 67 million views through paying these guys, right? The DNC paying these guys
Right.
to put out specific pro-communist, pro-democratic party Biden narratives. And nobody's done anything to combat that. McDaniel, wasted about $5 million, probably went up McCarthy's nose or maybe to pay for some of his hookers. I don't know. And they wasted it. And we saw that void. And what we decided to do is we're raising money right now, $250,000 to pay 20 Gen Z influencers $1,000 a month from now until the election and beyond to put out a pro-Trump platform without ever mentioning Donald Trump. So basically, it's talking about God, biblical, values. It's talking about
Right.
why immigration is positive, anything we believe on TikTok and on all the other platforms. And now General Flynn is creating his own. He's sponsored us, endorsed us. If you go to OPZ now, that's opznow.com. You can see the video where he introduces Alex and I, where he talks about these digital warriors. But now he's actually taken a platform. He's going to be taking a platform and allowing these Gen Z influencers to have their own shows on a non-censored platform that he and his crew are going to create or are creating. So you'll have an attack on social media where you have all these big influencers
Right.
sharing these more unknown, younger 13 to 25-year-old influencers, growing their views, growing their following, growing their ad revenue. But more importantly, getting those messages out, because Turning Point has a target on their back. It's amazing what they've done. But
Right.
we have to talk to the independents and Democrats that come from
That's right.
Democratic families and are brainwashed. And we have to
Right.
talk to them in a way that's not demeaning so that we can reach them, right? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. I love what Turning Point's doing. I'm not chastising that. I'm
Right.
saying everybody knows that if you're from Turning Point, you're a diehard conservative. And we need to diffuse the DTS, or excuse me,
Yep.
the Trump derangement syndrome, the TDS, get Orange Man bad out of their brain and just talk to them about, do you want your kids having their cars looted? Do you want people getting a free ride? Do you want your tax dollars going
Right.
towards paying for illegal immigrants? Right. So meanwhile, I'm trying to get a bigger house and I'm held to a standard on a lease in the state of New York. But if you wanted to be a squatter and stay in the state of New York, I'm not moving out and I'm not going to pay rent. You'd be like my mother-in-law, and it'd take you 2 years to prosecute that person. So like this is the
Right.
insanity of the society we live in right now.
Well, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. When you talk about you've talked, you don't just about conservative values. You preach freedom and liberty, and it all comes down to freedom and liberty. Like, I have conservative values, but I've got friends who are Democrats that are more conservative than some of my Republican friends, and I like your plan of action to bring more people together on American values and values that promote freedom and liberty and capitalism and free markets and everything like that. So 100% I agree with you, on all of that. But I know we got to wrap it up. Any final words, before we head out?
Well, just go to 1776foreverfree.com, opznow.com. That's 1776foreverfree.com or opznow.com. And just donate $5, $10, $25. Or, if you have one of those churches that has skinny jean, fog machine, laser beams, and the pastor drives around in a Maserati and says that it's God's will that he have the Maserati, maybe you might want to consider, let's put that money towards Patriots.
Right.
Not Patriots, Paytriots. And let's get into real churches where the pastors are donating the money back to the people, right? And so I'm just going to encourage you, if God's tugging on your heart to tithe, remember the Bible talks about tithing can be done in all forms, bartering, adjusting. And I think a tithe to save our kids, I think God's not going to condemn you for that, but he might condemn you if you're buying your pastor another Maserati with your money. So, just
well,
thoughts there, right?
I'll tell you a story off camera on that one real quick. But to your point, I love the operation.
I met a lot of great pastors, but I met a lot of scumbags that called themselves pastors.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I got two examples in my own backyard, pretty much, but to your point,
when I used to live in California, I had a bunch too. So,
well, I'll tell you some of that more later. But yeah, but to your point, the young kids right now are being bombarded, with propaganda from the opposite side, and they're doing that as a way to not only change hearts and minds at this young of an age, but a future for our country. Dr. Cordie Williams, thank you so much for coming on there. I really appreciate it. I want you to hang on for just 1 second. I'm gonna end the show out and tell everybody else, please. This is the type of group that's protecting freedom and liberty in America. Dr. Cordie Williams is somebody that you can see has put his own financial worth being on the line for not only your values, but our values on our country. Please go visit 1776foreverfree.com and share the show with somebody else that loves freedom and liberty. Thank you so much.
God bless you, William.